Hi, welcome to PunchlineGloucester.com. Punchline talks to business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Every week, we also choose a hot topic, and this week, it's all about a report that says that criminals are undermining retailers. And have we actually lost control of the high street? What does the panel think? But before we start all this, we're going to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we really, really couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's have a meeting. Let's get to meet the panel. Sorry, we got Fran Inman. She's the CEO of Cheltenham BID, the not-for-profit organisation that represents and supports over 800 levy-paying businesses and promotes Cheltenham as a safe, secure, attractive, clean, welcoming, vibrant, and connected place to spend time. Fran took over the position just over a year ago, and the bid is up for re-election. Why and why does it matter? And why should Cheltenham bid for the bid? So we'll find out from Fran. We've got David Jones, MD of Evans Jones, Cheltenham Property and Planning Consultants. The government have been messing around with the planning since they got into office. What are the big changes and how are they affecting construction and business? And what would we like to see them do next? We all know the UK planning system is broken. How can it be fixed, Dave? In around 3 minutes, you've got to solve the world's problems. Okay, so
Well,
love to hear from you.
no
We have
challenge there.
Hugh. Yeah, no challenge. We got Hugh Lewis, MBE, MD of Black Mountain Clothing. The company produces branded clothing from its Ross and Rye base. It currently has 15 staff and a turnover of over 1 million. I just want to point out that obviously Hugh and Black Mountain did our fantastic branded stuff. Thanks to Hugh for all that. And Hugh's a busy guy, but he's just launched an executive coaching business. So we'll find out what, where, and why now, Hugh? So we'll find out all about that. And we've got Mike Donaldson, MD of Cleveland Windows and Construction. The company's been trading since 1984, the year I joined the RAF, has 54 staff based in Newham and a turnover of 14 million. Mike bought the business as part of a management buyout in 2024, and he hasn't looked back since. So we find out more about the company, what's changed. I want to ask him for his top 3 tips on doing an MBO. What tips have you got for this? So no pressure there, Mike. Okay, let's see what's making the headlines for the national newspapers. Courtesy of the BBC. Here we go, the Daily Mail. Minister for Hypocrisy is forced to quit. The UK's Minister for Homelessness quits after she's caught ejecting tenants and hiking rent. The Daily Telegraph. Minister resigns over rental hypocrisy. The Times. Israel could cut security ties if Starmer recognises Palestine. The Daily Express. Pill for weight loss on the NHS. The Mirror. Weight loss pill on the NHS. The Financial Times. Bank of England lowers rates, but tight vote forces investors to rein in bets for more cuts. The Guardian. Netanyahu defies warning over taking military action of all Gaza. The Sun, asylum seasiders. The Daily Star, 4-4 boo. And the Metro, he's our brave little miracle. And a nice little positive story to end there. It's a right old mixed bag today. Let's start with you, Fran. Welcome to the show. What have you picked out for us, please?
Thank you. So the one I have picked out today is one by The Guardian. So disputed or debunked claims about migration and crime in the UK. So that's the one I've picked.
What was
Um,
that, sorry?
it's the disputed or debunked claims about migration and crime in the UK.
And what is the actual article saying about it?
So it's basically saying that politicians are facing criticism for promoting misleading data, and that they're claims that don't bear scrutiny. So yeah, they've made some points on foreign nationals saying are they responsible for the majority of the crime here or not. So there's question marks around whether the data that's being produced is accurate or it isn't. So bit of an
Right.
interesting one, really.
Well, the ministers are definitely in the press at the moment, aren't they, for the wrong reasons? Okay, let's go to you. Thanks for that. Dave, what have you picked out for us?
A couple of interrelated ones, really. So, from the house price rise is fastest rate this year, says the Halifax. So, England and Northumberland, 4% growth, but less good news, I suppose, for the Southwest, 0.2%, which is hardly measurable, but obviously that's not off the back of, but will be supported by the Bank of England base rate drop yesterday, 0.25%. Ultimately, house price sales are related to people's ability to borrow and fund the purchase. So, it's encouraging that house price rises have increased. We don't want rampant house price inflation, but for the system to work as it is, it does need to keep increasing at a slower rate. But the Bank of England base rate drop should assist that further, I think. And just very quickly, I have found a house for you. I know your love of Welsh Islands, and there's one up for sale off the Pembrokeshire coast for 3 million, stunning Welsh island with a fort. I know you'd like a lighthouse, but this has a fort, £3 million, 2.5 acres. The guy spent £300,000 installing, amongst other things, windows, Cleveland. I don't know whether that was a contract of yours, but
not one of ours, unfortunately.
Oh, gutted. And you could house 20 of your friends, Mark, if you're interested. So there we are.
I love the look of that, mate. I would definitely invite you along, Dave. It goes without
Thank
saying.
you.
Well, all the panel, as long as there's a lighthouse, and I'm sure you can get me planning permission for it without a shadow of a doubt.
No doubt.
No, love it. Thanks very much for that. Hugh, great to have you back on the show. What have you picked out for us, please, mate?
Well, thank you for being here. It's on the 15th of August is Victory in Japan Day. So that was the official end of the World War II, obviously the most costly in terms of life the world has ever seen. And obviously, because of the atomic bombs that dropped just before the cessation of fighting, it changed the world forever. So how is it linked into business? Well, the article I read in the paper is encouraging business to recognize it by 2 minutes silence. And I think that's really, really important, because not only will it reflect on the tragedy of war and how important it is to avoid war at all stakes, it'll also remind the younger people in business, in work, what actually happened 80 years ago. So really, I found it really fascinating, all the data and the information about it. But the main event is at the National Memorial Gardens in Shropshire, which, if anybody's ever been, it's just an amazing place for not just the armed forces, but all the blue light services. So yeah, that's what I picked out today.
Okay, totally agree with you. Great. Thanks for picking that out. And it's amazing how anybody survived Hiroshima. But people did. Thanks ever so much for that, Mike. Great to have you on the show. Welcome. What have you picked out for us, sir?
Yeah, good morning, Mark. Mine's slightly different. I've gone from the BBC news website, and it's a Gloucestershire related story. And really sad, to be honest. There's lots of grassroots sports clubs suffering all sorts of vandalism, costing thousands of pounds, disrupting the services they provide to the community. Taverners in Eastonton, all sorts of damage to their clubhouse, to football dugouts. Barrow Cricket Club in Cirencester, similar break-ins, lots and lots of vandalism. And somebody who plays a lot of local sport and has children involved with it. It's really, really sad to see all these volunteers and sort of community groups being targeted by mindless idiots, to be honest. So it just sort of just shows how much can be affected by people not actually thinking about the sort of repercussions of their actions.
No, I totally agree with you, and so many, really volunteers that put their time, effort, and love into these places. You can't imagine kids rocking up and their clubs being vandalised. It's heartbreaking, really, and it goes to show. Unfortunately, it goes back to our story about crime and disorder that's going on in Britain. Broken Britain. It's just another symbol of it, really. Thanks ever so much for that, Mike. Fran, I'm going to go back over to you. Right, the Cheltenham BID. You've been in charge for over a year. How's it going?
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. There's some amazing businesses in Cheltenham, and we've got a great team now. So we're hoping over the next few years we can do some really, really positive things for the town centre.
Now, obviously, the bid is up for re-election. Why is it up for re-election, and why should people bid for it again?
So bids are really interesting sort of concept, really. So there's 343 of us across the UK, and the concept is you're voted in or out by your businesses that pay your levy. I actually think it's a really good thing. Some people don't. I do because I think it holds you to account as a company to ensure that you're performing. And keeping businesses happy. So how the concept works is every business that pays over our threshold of 7,500 currently will pay into the bid. They all get, it's quite an old school process. They all get a ballot paper through their door in October. And basically it's like an election, really. They get to vote whether to keep you or to say, no, they don't want you anymore. So yeah, we've got that coming up in October.
And what's the alternative to a bid? Because what is let's go step back a bit. Some people
Mhm.
don't realise what a bid actually does. So, what do you do for your members?
So basically, we're here to make a place a better place to live, work, or socialise. So that's it in a nutshell. Any top two priorities of the business improvement district is to ensure that a town remains safe and clean, because without those two things, you've got nothing. But we do a whole host of things, such as the Christmas lights. We do bid and bloom, so produce loads of flowers across the town centre. We do safety initiatives, events, training, and a lot of these things are actually heavily subsidised for businesses that pay into our levy. So we're very different from what I would call a normal membership organisation. Once you're voted in, you're in for 5 years. So we're here essentially to be that collective business voice, to challenge the local authorities and police service, etc., but also make sure that businesses' needs are being heard where they should be. So yeah, it's a plethora of things that we do. But as you said, sort of without us, it doesn't really sit anywhere. So you essentially lose all the services we provide. And I'm biased because I work in the industry, but I do think if you lost us, who's holding anyone to account? And what about all the additionality and value that provide? It will essentially just be gone.
I mean that is it. What's the alternative? Because if the bid went here in Gloucester as well, what would they replace it with? Who would do that work? Somebody, and the council itself would probably have to pick it up. And let's be honest, they don't have any money anyway.
No, so that's like the misconception. People think, oh, well, the council do that anyway. They should be doing it. And I could go into loads of detail, but as we know, there's been loads of local authority cuts. They don't have the funding or the resources anymore. So as much as I'd like to say that it'd sit with the council, I basically think it wouldn't. They just don't have the time or capacity to do what they used to do sort of years ago. So that's the difference now. And that's why you're seeing so many bids, because we are that in between.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Fran, and good luck with that. By the
Thank
way,
you very much.
I think you guys do a great job. Okay, Dave. Let's bring you in, Dave. The planning system, it's broken. I hear that all the time, but so many. It's quite a complex thing. But the
It
government's
is.
changed so much. What are the main key parts? If you could just give us an overview.
Yeah, I mean, it's a broken system is it's an easy headline. It's far more nuanced than that. So government came into power on a mandate of building 1.5 million homes over the term of this parliament, which is, needs to be 370,000 homes per year. Unfortunately, since coming to power, housing starts and completions have declined. Probably through no fault of the government. I think they are doing what they can to create more planning permission for houses to be built. But this year, in England, we will top out at about 190,000 homes completed against a target of, let's say, 360,000. So, a significant shortfall. It's something of a perfect storm. We've discussed previously biodiversity net gain and the impact that has having on SME developers. The SME market has been under strain for a while because of rising resource costs and the difficulty of building viably. And we get another cost levied on them through dealing with biodiversity net gain. And that's, not to say I'm against biodiversity or creating gains, but the way that the government have applied it to very bluntly to smaller developers is just unworkable. And we're now seeing local authorities, to name one, the Forest of Dean, seeking to increase yet further the biodiversity gain requirement. So the national requirement is 10%. Forest of Dean District Council want to impose a standard of 20%, which has huge implications for SME developers in an area where viability is already marginal. It just stops building at source. And sites I look at for developers or landowners, they get killed at source because I'm advising that it's not going to be viable to even proceed to planning application stage. And the government don't see that statistic. They may see the end result of houses not being built, but they don't see how consultants, like me and many others, will be advising clients, look, if you proceed, you're going to have to, pay, or the developer will have to pay or contribute through mitigation payments, and your scheme is probably not viable, and people will then tend not to go ahead then.
Dave, just very quickly, just so that some of the viewers might really understand what biodiversity gain is, can you just give us that in a nutshell?
So any site, any development site, say for very few exceptions, must improve the biodiversity upon completion of the site by 10%. So you measure the baseline value prior to commencement, and then at completion you must have baseline plus 10%. So if you have a site with trees or elements of biodiversity value, even mown grass has a value, then you have to take that value plus 10%. Now, obviously, if you're building on something, that's having a negative impact on biodiversity because you're covering something with concrete or buildings or drives, etc. So you then have to find land to compensate. So what is happening on smaller sites is that agricultural land is being set aside for biodiversity net gain. So A, there's a high cost to that in many instances. B, we're taking land out of agricultural production to create biodiversity gains. Neither of those are particularly workable, but it's moreover the cost of mitigating on individual sites. I know of a site of 3 units where the mitigation costs alone for BNG was £400,000.
Wow! So how are these guys supposed to make a profit?
It doesn't.
I think
that scheme won't go ahead. No, it kills the scheme.
So in the Forest of Dean, basically, you'd be advising people not to build there.
Well, we're currently lobbying the council not to increase the requirement to 20%. So, that has to be the first port of call to try and advise councillors why this is not a sensible idea. So, we're in the midst of that at the moment.
Okay, thanks so much. I'd like to talk to you a little bit further about this section. I think there's a bit of a story there for Punchline. Okay, thanks so much for that, Dave. Hugh, let's bring you in. Hugh, I've known you for quite some time as well. You've just launched a new business. Why are you doing this? You got enough hats, mate, going on. It's tough enough running one business. Surely Black Mountain is successful enough. You don't have to, do a little side job.
I'm lucky I got a really good team here in Black Mountain. But yeah, so I've run a number of businesses in the last 26 years, and I'm lucky to say that they've all been successful, touch wood. And I've also gone through a sale. I've built businesses from the ground up. The largest one with turnover 15 million, 200 staff, 35 different locations, and all the complexity of that. So I've worked with education, I've worked with sports and fitness, even adventure training, and quite a diverse portfolio now, obviously in clothing as well. And people have just been approaching me, friends and associates have been approaching me. So it's been driven by demand rather than my ambition, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy sharing some of the battle scars that I have had over the years, and helping people avoid the pitfalls and the mistakes that I've made or I've seen other people make as well, because it's really quite difficult to get impartial advice that really is centered on the individual, because pretty well every expert has their own perspective on it. So looking at it from the perspective of the business owner, or the executive. It's about that really, and being on their side. So yeah, I've got a few clients, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really rewarding.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? We're all successful if we do what we love doing. It's quite simple as that, really. That's the way I see it. I'm just going to bring up the screen quickly just to give you an opportunity to plug Black Mountain. There's your website right there.
Brilliant.
Obviously, all different types of clothing. I would imagine you're quite busy with school uniforms now, aren't you?
Yeah, so because we've been doing it for a while, we've planned it all in. So it is busy. It's really busy, but I got a great team here, and there's a fantastic atmosphere. There's a real buzz. So that energy, the scale of work is transferred into a positive energy. But our focus really always has been business to business. So we look after companies, we create their own micro websites, take the pain out of purchasing a large amount of stock, and make it as easy as possible for organizations to ensure that they have fast turnarounds with their branded kit at the quality they want, at the time they want as well. That was the genesis of the organization. I set Black Mountain to support another company I had, which basically struggled to find a supplier that could give them the uniform on time. So yeah, we've got lots of lovely companies on board, and that continues to be our focus. Although we look after schools, and we quite enjoy looking after schools. We've got our showrooms here in Ross and Y, and it's quite nice to see the kids and the parents coming in all excited about the new schools and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's a good time actually. Good time to be in work.
And I must admit, there's a good vibe to it as well, which is nice, quite nice. Thanks ever so much for that. It's good to bring in Mike. Mike, great to see you. Great to have you on the show. Taking over Gleavham. Gleavham's obviously a well-known brand throughout the area. I know Gary Jones myself for a long, long time. Used to work with him in the newspapers. And he's obviously retired now. You've taken it over, Mike. How's it gone?
Yeah, he's well and truly got his feet up now. I mean, we had quite a change coming out the back of COVID. Really, Gary took a back seat, which enabled me to run particularly the new build side of the business for sort of 3-4 years before we got to the actual MBO itself, which was very helpful from my point of view. Probably helpful for Gary as well, because it gave him a long transition and a long time to get used to not being involved in something day to day, something, business that he'd been involved with 40 years last year. So a long time.
I mean, so how long did you work on the business beforehand? Sorry, within the company.
Yeah. So literally started 10 years ago. 10 years ago this month. So working predominantly on the new build side of the business, which has been my sort of background.
Was it hard to do? Did everybody come on board straight away on the company? Because you've got a lot of staff there to manage as well. Do they all get the buy-in on it, Mike?
Yeah, very much so, to be honest. I mean, I think it helped. As I said, I'd been sort of sat at the top of the tree with Gary for quite a while, really. So for a lot of people, there wasn't too much immediate change. Whereas sometimes you get buyouts or change of ownerships, and everything changes overnight. Whereas this was very much a sort of a long transition period.
Now, on an MBO, obviously, it can be quite a daunting prospect. It's funny enough, Hugh FM just gone through it. Quite a few businesses have done it. What is your top 3 tips, Mike? What would be the sort of take from it?
I think firstly, understand the business. Really, really understand the business, the ins and outs of it. Know the staff. Just again, as I said just now, don't come into something from outside and try and take something on. So that was huge for me. The amount of time I'd been in it, and you need to know things warts and all, unfortunately, and I was fortunate enough to do that. Secondly, advice, and I mean like professional advice. And Hazelwoods are obviously sponsoring the show today, and Rich Grover at Hazelwoods was absolutely fantastic in his advice and his knowledge, his understanding of things, and also DAC Beechcroft in Bristol as my lawyers. So I think it's really important to make sure that you analyse the people you want acting for you, and advising, and be able to have a really, really good relationship with those guys as well. And then, I mean, finally, the biggest thing for me was being open with my suppliers, and bringing them into the conversations is sort of early as possible. And the support I've had from our supply chain has been absolutely incredible, to be honest, and that's enabled the business just to carry on as was in what is obviously fairly difficult times.
Yeah, it's a tough business. Can I just add two other top tips would be obviously get some really decent branded clothing, and get a good planner, because those things are really important to an MBO. Anyway, I just want to thanks ever so much for that. Moving on now, we got the top hot topic for today is obviously about retail crime. You know, are we losing control of the high streets? There's a report out, and this brings you first of all back in there, Fran. But I'm going to share this little video that we've got on our website today. So if I can bring this up, hopefully you can all see it. So this is a cafe in Cheltenham that what have I got there now? God, I'm no luck with the technical side of stuff today. Okay, this is a burglary that took place. It's really sad to see this. This is the third time this cafe has been burgled. You can't imagine watching that video back, and they had the cafe, Coronation Cafe. £800 was stolen this particular burglary. They haven't caught the people yet, and it's devastating. And you can imagine, are we losing control of our high streets? Fran, you obviously are there talking to the BID members all the time. What's going on in there in Cheltenham, and how tough is it, crime and stuff?
I think for retailers especially, it is tough. I could probably talk about this topic for a lot because a long time. I sit on a national board for business crime, so it's not just here; it's happening everywhere. The things that stand out to me are cuts for local authority and police, I think, is the first thing. I think there has been a shift since COVID. What I've seen is a massive culture shift amongst people. There's a sense of entitlement now that people can go in and do that, and there is no repercussion, and it's happening quite often. I thirdly would say what we find a lot is what's reported and what actually what's happening are two different things. So businesses just don't have the time to keep reporting absolutely everything, so you get a fraction of the picture. And if you do sort of a campaign on reporting, what you'll find is reports go up, and then unfortunately press then say that there's an issue in that place. So you essentially can't win. What I don't like is that people aren't feeling safe to go to work. People should be able to go to their retail store and feel safe. And for that company that's been burgled 3 times, I'm sure there's a perception that it is now unsafe. So I think there's a lot going on all at once, if I'm honest, from culture to cuts in funding to actually, people having the time to report. And I think things from a national level have changed. You'll know previously that shoplifting wasn't acceptable and people would be chased by security and found out and given a sentence, whereas now the advice is to have a camera and sort of not challenge those people because it is too dangerous. So yeah, it's a real hot topic. It has been for a while, but what I would say it's definitely more prominent since COVID.
And also there's that fear of knife crime as well, which they just haven't tackled. The thing about it years ago, I'm going to ask the guys here as well. Years ago, if you saw a crime being committed, you saw someone picking up a whole load of stuff, I personally would have tackled them and wouldn't have thought instantly you would do something about it. I think nowadays with knife crime, you're not going to do same with someone's burgling the house, whatever. I'm going to bring you in, Dave. You live there in Cheltenham as well. Do you feel the sense that the police have lost control of it? Not just police, but society itself.
It's easy. It's very easy to blame the police, isn't it? I mean, Jane
Yeah.
Jane works for a large retailer in the town, and I hear about it, real time as to what is the impact of crime in those stores, and she regularly reports that tags are found tucked behind mirrors in changing rooms. I mean, beauty is the real hot one that they will just come in and clear the shelves brazenly. I think we've discussed the high street many times and what we can do to try and improve the high street offering or regenerate it. But I suppose it still shows that disparity between physical retailing and online retailing. Online retailing doesn't suffer, the pilfering that physical retailing does. I mean, there is some crime involved with it, with things, going missing in the post, or there will be some leakage, but nothing like that's facing the big retailers. And yeah, it's lack of resources from the police to follow up. So if the resources aren't there, then what can they do?
And also, I always think it's about the staff. The staff, they get threatened, they get shouted at. I did interview some staff from Tesco the other day, Poundland, interviewed, and they literally walk into the shop, pick up crates of beer, and walk out
Yeah.
again. And the security guards standing there aren't told to tackle them either.
No.
Mike, let's bring you into the conversation, and you, Hugh. I mean, what's your thoughts? Let's go to Hugh first. Obviously, an ex-military man like yourself. I know you'd probably be like me. You'd probably tackle somebody.
Well, bizarrely, it just happened the other day. We were in a cafe in Cheltenham, just by the brewery quarter, and a large gang of young boys came in and started fighting. And I did intervene, and I threw them out. But afterwards, I had to think about myself. What if they did have the knife? What if something was different? So it can happen in a second, but you don't expect it to happen in Cheltenham. And in fact, it happened in Ross, where we're based in Ross. Every other company around us all had people just exactly as somebody described it then, walk in, pick up stuff and walk out. And just by chance, it didn't happen to us, but next door and the door after, they stole absolute thousands of pounds, and they haven't been caught. So it's just, I think it's getting to epidemic levels. I really do.
Just explaining where you are, because you're on a big industrial unit there, and you've got you there, and then you've got sort of Screwfix. You've got these other companies, what the sort of wholesalers, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's quite big space. You could bulky, not being funny, mate. Big bulky guys will work in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but the people that when I was talking to our next door neighbours, they're just really sort of canny. They did a distraction technique, picked up the kit, and literally took thousands and thousands of pounds worth of kit. And if it can happen in Ross and Y, it'll happen anywhere and everywhere. So what's the solution? Well, New York went through something similar, and they had zero tolerance. There's a book by a guy called Malcolm Gladwell, and it's called The Tipping Point. And what they did, they'd have police everywhere, obviously, but every small crime was tackled as if it was a major crime. And quite often, when they actually dug into it, those perpetrators really had something else behind them. So it had a double effect. But the way they did it was by having basically buses going around and just catching those people, put them in the bus and leaving them there all day, and then dealing with them at the end of the day, so you could use their police resources to the best effect. But the good thing is, and the sad thing is, most of the crime is done by a very, very small proportion of people, a tiny amount of people, but the impact is huge. And I've seen the impact on the victims, and it's horrible. It's horrible. People are scared to go to work, and that's not right, is it?
Mike, do you obviously got a product there? You've got a big warehouse. Are you guys ever been affected by that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're fairly fortunate in terms of what we stock is of no real value in terms of our product, but we've had vans targeted on several occasions. And the sort of disappointing thing is you see pictures of tradespeople's tools in car boot sales every Sunday across the country, and you know, everybody knows where this kit's come from. People aren't then doing the right thing and not buying it or reporting it. You know, the police don't have the resource to go and investigate this, you know, this massive amount of power tools in a car boot sale. Unfortunately, I mean, I agree with you. We've got to try and tackle this at source and come up with a way of doing the right thing. And I think it's way too easy to look at this and say this is low value. It's not low value when you put the cumulative figure together. It's you know, it's a multi-million pound industry, unfortunately, and we've got to do something to try and, you know, protect the people who are physically there. From a tradesperson's point of view, it is their livelihood, and you know, I understand why people who are working in shops, probably not much earning over minimum wage, do want to stand back. I absolutely get that, but I think historically, in the generation that most of us grew up in, people did step in, people did try and do the right thing, and for various different reasons, and you know, we've touched on it in the last 5 minutes. Unfortunately, people are stepping back a little bit at the moment and worrying what might happen. Whereas I think you know, historically we would probably dive in and try and prevent things.
Yeah, no, totally, and it goes back to that broken glass campaign. You know, where you have a broken glass or someone smashes a window. I totally agree with you, Hugh. What happened in New York was fantastic, but it's reverted back though. They stopped that in the end, and I think it's something that we must really do. Is just I don't know. It needs so much resource. What is the answer? Don't know, but it's just getting worse and worse. I had it right in front of me, by the way. I was in a shop in Tesco, sorry, Co-op, and the guy there, he'd done his, you know, scanned all his stuff in, and then and he walked out. And anyway, I went to put my stuff in. I realised he hadn't pressed the buttons or something. It wouldn't clear. And I realised then, by the time he'd gone out of the shop, he'd actually nicked the whole lot. He hadn't paid for it, but it looked like he'd paid for it. He'd gone for that whole rigmarole of looking like it. Anyway, the thing about crime like that, it's not faceless. You know, businesses, small companies, as this terrible, you know, really sad story that we're running today, this exclusive story and the video that we got on Punchline today about these cafe owners. All the very best to them as well. Okay, that's thanks ever so much for joining the hot topic today. We have to move on. We don't have much time to talk about it, unfortunately, but maybe we could come back to this in a later date. So, guys, I just want to wrap this up very quickly, please. We've got the pick of the punchlines. I'm going to start with you, Fran. What have you picked out from Punchline this week? We've only got 30 seconds each.
Oh, what have I picked out? I did actually pick out the one you said about the cafe being burgled, but yeah, you've got all sorts going on Punchline at the moment. What other one shall I pick? I guess linked to that, there's a test purchase operation that's been conducted in Cheltenham. So linking to what we just talked about. So officers from the constabulary licensing team took part in the test purchases in Cheltenham, where a teenager attempted to buy alcohol from a shop. So it's something they do quite often. So they do test the shops in Cheltenham to make sure that they're not selling to underage. So I think that's a really good thing to hold them to account if they do. So they use a police cadets to do that. So naturally they're quite young. So they saw 11 shops, and 8 of the shops checked the teen's ID. So it's quite good, 8 out of 11 that are compliant. And I guess those that aren't are held to account. But yeah, I think things like this should be done. So we stop the underage drinking. But yeah, it's an interesting story. And it's something they do year on year. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Fran. Dave, what have you picked out from this week's Punch, please?
I think it might have been last week's, but it was the new housing to help young people. A student accommodation block in Denmark Road, Gloucester, which is proposed to be repurposed for vulnerable young people on 100% affordable social rent. We talk about the broken planning system. The application has unfortunately yielded 50 objections from the settled community, and you know, that sort of points to some of the problems that we have. You know, we make applications. Is there really that much difference between social housing and student accommodation? Probably not materially, but 50 objections that officers then have to consider. councillors may well have to consider and could be influenced by, and that scheme, may be supported, could be refused, and then an appeal, and we've lost 12, 18 months when that property could have been used for a good purpose. So.
Okay, thank you ever so much. Hugh, what have you picked out for this week's punchline, please?
Reading about the Gloucester Food Festival and how positive that was, so with over 50,000 people attending. I think it's an incredible feat, and it's just great to see that there's a platform for small businesses. I think there's about 160 small little booths or pop-up shops and restaurants being held there, and it's just a great way to bring money and people together for the city of Gloucester.
Okay, totally agree. And they do go into town afterwards as well. They do wander in. You can see this constant flow. People criticise the quays for that, but there is a two-way street there. Thanks ever so much. Totally agree. Mike, what have you picked out this week's punchlines, please?
Yeah, quite a random one for a 49-year-old bloke. But the disappointing news that Claire's accessories looks like it's going to be closing. A couple of local branches, but it just goes to show how hard it is for our all types of businesses at the moment, with the squeeze on people's income and rising business costs. It's something that I've spent a lot of time in with a teenage daughter over the last few years, and quite an iconic British high street business.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I've spent hours and hours with two daughters wandering around Claire's, looking very sad. It's purgatory. It's like going to IKEA with your wife on a Saturday. Anyway, that's my own personal opinion on that. Thank you ever so much, my panel, for joining us today. Really great to see you. Sorry about the technical issues. You've been very, very patient with me. Couldn't agree. Also, thank you for watching Punchline today. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week. But until then, remember, it's all in the Punchline. Thank you. Until then, bye.